The massive crystal palace of Queen Vexera stretched across the purple sky like a frozen lightning bolt. Its walls caught the light of 3 suns and threw rainbows across the throne room where the most powerful ruler in the galaxy held court. Guards in silver armor stood at attention while alien nobles from a dozen different worlds waited their turn to speak. Queen Vexera sat on her throne made from compressed starlight, her blue skin gleaming and her 6 arms folded in perfect symmetry. Her people, the Zephyrians, had conquered half the known galaxy in just 50 years. They were faster, stronger, and smarter than most species they encountered. Their technology turned entire suns into weapons. But there was one species that had given them trouble. Humans. The Queen remembered the first time she heard about humans 3 years ago. Her generals had laughed when they described the small pink creatures from a tiny blue world. They had no natural weapons, no thick skin, no ability to breathe poison gas or see in complete darkness. They lived for barely 100 years and needed to eat every few hours just to survive. They will surrender in days, her war chief had promised. That war had lasted 2 years. Humans fought like no other species the Zephyrians had ever faced. When their ships were destroyed, they built new ones from the wreckage. When their weapons ran out of power, they made clubs from metal scraps. When their cities fell, they disappeared into forests and caves and kept fighting. The worst part was their leader. A human soldier named Tom who had somehow united the scattered human resistance groups into one army. He was not the biggest or strongest human, but something about him made other humans fight harder. He would appear on battlefield after battlefield, always where the fighting was worst, always where humans needed hope most. Queen Vexera had made destroying Tom her personal mission. She studied human tactics, learned their language, and finally cornered his forces on the border world of Kepler-7. The final battle lasted 3 days. When the smoke cleared, Tom lay wounded and captured among the ruins of the last human stronghold. The Queen had wanted to execute him publicly to break human morale across the galaxy. She brought him to Kepler-7's main city where 10,000 humans were forced to watch. Tom stood straight despite his wounds, looking directly at her as she read his death sentence. "Any last words, human?" she had asked. "Yeah," Tom had replied, his voice carrying over the silent crowd. "See you soon." The Queen had personally activated the execution device. She watched the life leave his eyes. She confirmed his death with her own medical scanners. She saw his body loaded into the disposal unit. That was 3 years ago. The human resistance had crumbled within months after Tom's death. The survivors were scattered across prison worlds or worked as slaves in alien mines. The war was over. So why was Tom standing in her throne room right now? "Your Majesty," announced Captain Rex, the head of her palace guard. "We have brought the prisoners from the Tau Ceti raid as you requested." Queen Vexera barely looked up from the holographic reports floating before her throne. The raid on Tau Ceti had been routine cleanup work. Some humans had been caught stealing supplies from a mining operation. Probably escaped slaves looking for food. She would decide their punishment and move on to more important matters. "Bring them forward," she said, still reading about or production numbers from the outer colonies. 20 prisoners shuffled into the vast throne room, their hands bound with energy chains that glowed blue in the crystal light. They wore ragged clothes and looked like they had not eaten well in weeks. Most kept their heads down in the defeated posture she had learned to expect from captured humans. But one prisoner walked differently. This human stood straight despite the chains. His steps were measured and confident. His clothes were torn but seemed to be pieces of old military uniform held together with wire and cloth strips. There was something about the way he moved that made Queen Vexera look up from her reports. The human had brown hair longer than she remembered, and new scars crossed his face and arms. His skin was darker from years under different suns. But when he raised his head and looked directly at her throne, Queen Vexera felt her heart stop beating. Those eyes. She knew those eyes. The holographic report scattered as she stood up fast from her throne. Her 6 arms spread wide in shock. Every noble and guard in the room turned to stare at their queen, who never showed surprise about anything. "No," she whispered. Then louder. "No, this is impossible." The human smiled. It was the same calm smile he had worn 3 years ago as she read his death sentence. Queen Vexera's voice rose to a shout that echoed off the crystal walls. "You were supposed to be dead. You were supposed to be dead." Complete silence filled the throne room. Nobles stared with open mouths. Guards reached for weapons they were not sure they needed. The other human prisoners looked confused and frightened. But Tom just kept smiling. "Reports of my death," he said in perfect Zephyrian, his voice carrying easily across the vast space, "have been greatly exaggerated." Queen Vexera felt the world spinning around her. She had watched him die. She had confirmed it with her own equipment. She had seen his body destroyed. But here he stood, 3 years later, looking older and scarred but very much alive. "Guards," she shouted. "Scan him. Use the deep scanners. This must be some kind of trick, a clone or a robot or some human deception." Captain Rex quickly pulled out an advanced medical scanner and pointed it at Tom. The device hummed and projected detailed readouts into the air. DNA match confirmed. Bone density patterns matched. Even old injury scars were in exactly the right places. "Your Majesty," Captain Rex said quietly. "The scanners confirm this is the same human. Tom of Earth. The one we executed on Kepler-7. Queen Vexera felt her legs go weak. She sat back down on her throne heavily. For the first time in her long life as a ruler, she did not know what to say or do. "How?" she finally managed to ask. Tom looked around the throne room slowly, taking in the crystal walls, the alien nobles, the nervous guards. His eyes came back to rest on Queen Vexera. "Your Majesty seems surprised to see me," he said. "I told you I would see you soon. I killed you myself. I watched you die." "You thought you killed me," Tom replied calmly. "But humans are harder to kill than your people understand." Queen Vexera's mind raced. If Tom was alive, what did that mean? Had other humans she thought were dead also survived? How many resistance fighters were still out there? How much did she not know about human capabilities? "Explain," she commanded. "Explain how you survived execution, and I might make your second death quick." Tom's smile widened. "Your Majesty, that execution device was designed for Zephyrian physiology. Your people have 6 hearts and distributed nervous systems. When the device stops your hearts and nerves, you die completely and quickly." The queen leaned forward on her throne. Around the room, nobles and guards listened carefully. "But humans," Tom continued, "have only one heart and a centralized nervous system. Your device put my body into something like a very deep sleep. My heart rate dropped so low your scanners could not detect it. My breathing stopped. My body temperature fell. To your equipment, and to anyone watching, I appeared completely dead." "That is impossible," Captain Rex interrupted. "Our medical technology is the most advanced in the galaxy." "For scanning Zephyrian bodies, yes," Tom agreed. "But you had only been fighting humans for 2 years. Your doctors never had time to study human death processes carefully. They assumed human bodies would react the same way as Zephyrian bodies." Queen Vexera felt a cold fear growing in her chest. "Even if that were true, I saw your body disposed of. You were incinerated." "You saw a body loaded into the disposal unit," Tom said. "But humans had infiltrated the disposal facility weeks before my capture. My people were waiting." The queen's 6 hands gripped the arms of her throne. "Your people were all captured or scattered after your death." "Some were captured," Tom admitted. "Some were scattered. But some survived. And humans have a rule, Your Majesty. We never leave our people behind. Ever. When there was even a small chance I might be alive, they took that chance. So they rescued your body. They rescued what they thought was my body. Imagine their surprise when it started breathing again. Queen Vexera stood up again and began pacing in front of her throne. This changed everything she thought she knew about humans. If they could survive Zephyrian execution methods, what else could they survive? If they had successfully infiltrated a high-security disposal facility, where else had they infiltrated? Where have you been for 3 years, she demanded. Recovering, Tom said simply. It took months for my body to fully heal from the execution process. And then I had work to do. What work? Tom's expression became serious for the first time. Finding my people. Helping them. Learning about your empire from the inside instead of just fighting it from the outside. Learning what? How your supply chains work. Where your important facilities are located. Which of your nobles can be trusted and which ones are stealing from you. Tom paused and looked directly at her. Would your majesty be interested to know that Lord Kexun has been selling weapons to your enemies for the past 2 years? Queen Vexera spun around to stare at Lord Kexun, a trusted advisor who stood frozen among the other nobles. His purple skin had turned pale gray. That is a lie. Lord Kexun shouted. Your Majesty, do not listen to this human deceiver. Tom reached slowly into his torn shirt and pulled out a small data crystal. This contains records of every transaction, including communication codes and bank transfers. I can also provide the locations of 3 weapon caches he has hidden for emergency sales. The Queen gestured, and Captain Rex took the crystal to examine it. The data was detailed and damning. Lord Kexun had indeed been selling advanced Zephyrian weapons to rebel groups across the galaxy. Guards, Queen Vexera said quietly. Arrest Lord Kexun. As the guards dragged away the protesting noble, the Queen turned back to Tom. How did you obtain this information? 3 years is a long time, Your Majesty. Time to make friends. Time to listen. Time to learn that humans are not the only species unhappy with how this empire is run. Queen Vexera felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. Not just because Tom was alive, but because of what his survival meant. Humans were more resourceful than she had thought. More capable of long-term planning. More dangerous when underestimated. Why are you here? She asked. If you have been free for 3 years, why come here now? Why reveal yourself? Tom's smile returned. Because, Your Majesty, the war is not over. It just moved to a different battlefield. What do you mean? I mean that killing me changed nothing. Scattering my people changed nothing. You cannot defeat humanity by destroying our bodies or our ships or our cities. You can only defeat us by breaking our spirit. And that, Your Majesty, is something you will never do. Queen Vexera stared at the human soldier who had somehow returned from the dead. Around the throne room, nobles whispered nervously to each other. Guards shifted their weight, unsure whether to treat Tom as a prisoner or a threat or something else entirely. You speak very confidently for someone in chains, the Queen said. Your Majesty, Tom replied, I am exactly where I need to be. Something about the way he said those words made Queen Vexera's blood run cold. She looked around the throne room with new eyes, wondering what else she might not understand about the situation. What do you want? She asked. Tom's expression became serious again. To talk. To make a proposal that could benefit both our people. You are in no position to make proposals, human. With respect, Your Majesty, I think I am in exactly the right position. You need to know what humans have been doing for the past 3 years while you thought we were broken. And I need to tell you what will happen if we cannot find a better way forward. Queen Vexera considered her options. She could execute Tom again, but clearly her execution methods did not work on humans as expected. She could imprison him, but he had already proven humans could escape or infiltrate Zephyrian facilities. She could torture him for information, but something told her that would not work either. Or she could listen. "Speak," she commanded. Tom straightened his shoulders despite the chains. "Your Majesty, 3 years ago you won a battle. But battles are not wars, and wars are not the end of conflict. You scattered human resistance, but you did not destroy human determination. And now that determination has had 3 years to grow and plan and spread. Continue. Humans are not like other species you have conquered. We do not give up. We do not accept defeat. And we never, ever forget our people who are suffering." Tom's voice grew stronger. "Right now, there are thousands of humans working as slaves in your mines and factories across the galaxy. They are waiting. They are hoping. And they are not alone." Queen Vexera felt a chill of realization. How many? How many humans survived? How many have stayed hidden? How many have spent 3 years learning your systems and making contacts with other species who have their own complaints about Zephyrian rule? Tom shook his head. "Your Majesty, those are the wrong questions." "Then what is the right question?" "The right question is, what do you want your empire to become? Do you want to rule through fear until every species in the galaxy hates you? Or do you want to build something that lasts?" Queen Vexera stared at the human soldier who had somehow returned from death to challenge everything she thought she knew. Around the throne room, her nobles and guards waited to see how their queen would respond to the most audacious proposal she had ever heard. And despite herself, despite her shock and anger and confusion, Queen Vexera found herself wanting to hear what Tom had to say next. Queen Vexera studied the human standing before her throne. Tom's calm confidence bothered her more than any weapon could. In her long reign, she had faced rebellions, assassins, and war fleets, but never an enemy who seemed genuinely pleased to be captured. "You speak of building something that lasts," she said slowly. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Partnership," Tom replied simply. "Between humans and Zephyrians. An alliance that benefits both our peoples." Several nobles in the throne room laughed out loud. Lord Zachary stepped forward, his silver robes rustling. "Your Majesty, this human mocks us. His species is conquered, scattered, enslaved. What could they possibly offer the Zephyrian Empire?" Tom turned his attention to Lord Zachary. "My lord, how are the mining operations on Vega for performing this quarter?" The noble's face darkened. "That information is classified. Production is down 30%, Tom continued calmly. The Rokari workers are staging slowdowns because they believe the Zephyrian overseers are stealing their food rations. Which they are. Queen Vexera's eyes narrowed. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because, Your Majesty, humans have been working in those mines for 2 years. We listen. We learn. We make friends with other oppressed species." Tom looked back at Lord Zachary. "The Rokari trust us because we saved 3 of their children from a cave collapse last month. They tell us things they would never tell Zephyrian administrators." "Lies and rumors," Lord Zachary protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Tom reached into another pocket of his torn uniform and produced a second data crystal. "This contains evidence of theft, abuse, and mismanagement in 17 different facilities across your empire. But more importantly, it contains solutions." Captain Rex took the crystal and quickly scanned its contents. His expression grew troubled as he read. "Your Majesty, these reports are highly detailed. They include internal communication codes and facility layouts that should be impossible for outsiders to obtain." Queen Vexera felt her understanding of the situation shifting again. "Continue your proposal, human." "For 3 years, Your Majesty, humans have not been hiding and waiting to die. We have been studying your empire from the inside. We have learned how it really works, not how you think it works. And we have discovered something important. Which is, your empire is not as strong as it appears. Oh, your military is powerful, and your technology is advanced. But empires are not held together by ships and weapons alone. They are held together by administration, logistics, communication, and most importantly, by the willingness of conquered peoples to cooperate. Tom gestured with his bound hands toward the throne room's crystal walls. This palace is beautiful, Your Majesty, but it floats on a foundation of resentment. The Rokari hate you for stealing their children for labor camps. The Vorthan hate you for strip mining their sacred mountains. The Kalari hate you for forcing them to abandon their pacifist beliefs and manufacture weapons. They obey, Queen Vexera said coldly. That is sufficient. They obey because they fear you. But fear is not loyalty, and it is not sustainable. Eventually, fear creates rebellion. And when rebellion comes, Your Majesty, you will need allies who fight for you because they choose to, not because they have no choice. Lord Zachary stepped forward again. Your Majesty, this is human propaganda designed to weaken your resolve. Crush this Tom now before he spreads more lies. But Queen Vexera was beginning to see the larger picture. You are suggesting that humans could serve as intermediaries. That other species might trust you where they do not trust us. Exactly, Tom confirmed. Humans have no natural advantages over other species. We are not stronger or faster or smarter than most aliens. But we have one quality that makes us valuable in a diverse empire. Which is, we understand what it feels like to be the underdog. Every species you have conquered can relate to humanity's struggle. They see us as fellow victims, not as conquerors. When we speak, they listen. Queen Vexera walked down from her throne to stand directly in front of Tom. Even with the height difference, he met her gaze steadily. And what would humans want in return for this service, she asked. Freedom for all human slaves. Recognition as a client species rather than a conquered people. And the right to govern our own worlds within the Empire's structure. Impossible, Lord Zachary interjected. To grant such terms would encourage every other species to make similar demands. Tom smiled again. My lord, every other species is already making those demands. The difference is whether Your Majesty chooses to hear them before or after they become violent. Queen Vexera studied Tom's scarred face. You speak as if rebellion is inevitable. Your Majesty, rebellion is already happening. It just has not reached your attention yet because your administrators have been hiding the truth from you. Tom nodded toward the data crystals Captain Rex now held. Those reports document 12 separate resistance movements currently operating in your empire. Some are small and poorly organized. Others are large enough to threaten entire star systems. Why should I believe you? Because, Your Majesty, I am standing here talking to you instead of leading one of those resistance movements. The Queen felt a chill of recognition. Tom was right. If humans had truly spent 3 years infiltrating her empire and making contact with other discontented species, he could be coordinating a massive uprising instead of offering partnership. What proof can you offer that humans are capable of the services you describe? Tom's expression became serious. Your Majesty, what proof would you like? Should I tell you that the food shortage on Kepler-12 was solved when humans taught the Altair farmers new cultivation techniques? Should I mention that the worker strikes in the Tau Ceti shipyards ended when humans mediated between Zephyrian managers and Vorthan laborers? Queen Vexera's 6 hearts began beating faster. Those problems were reported as resolved through standard administrative channels. Yes, they were. Your administrators took credit for solutions that humans provided. They did not want to report that they needed help from slaves to maintain order in their territories. Captain Rex checked his data pad quickly. Your Majesty, both incidents mentioned are accurately recorded. The reports do indicate unusually rapid resolution of complex problems. There are dozens of similar examples, Tom continued. Humans have been quietly solving problems throughout your empire for months. We did it not for recognition or reward, but to reduce the suffering of people we work alongside. Queen Vexera returned to her throne, her mind racing. If Tom was telling the truth, then humans had already demonstrated their value as administrators and mediators. More importantly, they had done so while officially enslaved, suggesting their capabilities would be even greater if properly motivated. Assuming I were to consider your proposal, she said carefully, what would this partnership look like in practice? Humans would serve as regional administrators in problem areas. We would live among the local populations, understand their concerns, and work to address legitimate grievances before they became rebellions. In exchange, we would ensure continued loyalty to the Zephyrian Empire and improved productivity in those regions. And if local populations still chose rebellion despite human mediation? Tom's smile became grim. Your Majesty, humans understand rebellion better than any species in your empire. We know how to fight it, and we know how to stop it. You would fight against fellow rebels. We would fight against unnecessary violence that harms innocent people. Humans believe in justice, Your Majesty, but we also believe in practical solutions. If a local governor is corrupt, we would remove the governor rather than burn down the city. Queen Vexera considered the proposal carefully. It was audacious and unprecedented, but it also addressed real problems she knew existed throughout her empire. Her traditional approach of ruling through force had created stability, but it had also created resentment that required constant vigilance to suppress. Your Majesty, Lord Zachary said urgently, you cannot seriously consider making deals with slaves. Why not? The Queen asked. If slaves can solve problems that free citizens cannot, perhaps our definitions need examination. She looked back at Tom. How many humans would be involved in this arrangement? Initially, perhaps 50,000 spread across your most problematic regions. All volunteers who have already proven their capabilities through the work we have done over the past 3 years. 50,000. Captain Rex echoed. Your Majesty, we estimated human survivors numbered no more than 10,000 across the entire empire. That was your mistake, Tom said quietly. You counted only the humans you could see. You never counted the ones who chose to remain invisible. Queen Vexera felt the final pieces of understanding click into place. How many humans actually survived the war? Roughly 2 million, Your Majesty. The throne room erupted in shocked voices. Nobles gasped and guards reached for weapons. Captain Rex stared at his scanner as if it had malfunctioned. Impossible. Lord Zachary shouted. Our casualty reports showed massive human losses. Our census data shows only scattered survivors. Your casualty reports showed massive human military losses, Tom corrected. But armies are not entire populations. And your census data shows only the humans who chose to register with Zephyrian authorities. Queen Vexera rose from her throne again, her voice deadly quiet. Are you telling me that 2 million humans have been living within my empire for 3 years without my knowledge? Not without your knowledge, Your Majesty. Without your attention. There is a difference. Explain that difference. Tom gestured toward the data crystals again. Those reports contain the locations of 17 hidden human communities. Every single community is built in areas your own surveys marked as uninhabitable or worthless. Asteroid mining sites abandoned because the ore ran out. Desert regions too hot for Zephyrian settlement. Ocean floors too deep for standard exploration. Humans adapted to environments we considered useless, Queen Vexera said slowly. We had help. The Kalari taught us underwater construction techniques. The Vorthan showed us how to survive in extreme heat. The Altair shared methods for growing food in artificial environments. Turns out that species you have conquered are eager to help anyone willing to oppose Zephyrian dominance, even if that opposition is just refusing to be where you expect us to be. The Queen sat back down heavily. 2 million humans. Living undetected for 3 years. Building communities, making alliances, infiltrating her facilities, gathering intelligence. The scope of the deception was staggering. Why reveal this now, she demanded. Why not continue hiding? Because hiding is not living, Your Majesty. Human children deserve to grow up in the light, not in caves and underwater domes. Human adults deserve to use their skills openly, not just to survive but to build something better. And because other species deserve to have advocates who understand their struggles. Tom's voice grew stronger. Most importantly, because your empire deserves to last longer than your lifetime. Right now, when you die, everything you have built will collapse in civil wars and rebellions. But with human partnership, you could create a system stable enough to endure for centuries. Queen Vexera stared at the human who had somehow turned his own execution into the foundation for the most comprehensive intelligence operation in her empire's history. The audacity was breathtaking. The implications were terrifying. The potential benefits were undeniable. If I refuse your proposal, she asked, then humans will continue doing what we have been doing. Surviving, growing, helping other species resist oppression. Eventually, Your Majesty, that resistance will become large enough and organized enough to threaten your rule directly. And if I accept, then humans become your partners instead of your enemies. The resistance movements we have contacted become networks for maintaining stability instead of destroying it. And your empire becomes something worth preserving instead of something that exists only through fear. The throne room fell silent except for the soft humming of the crystal walls. Queen Vexera looked around at her nobles and guards, seeing uncertainty and worry on faces that had always shown confidence before. Finally, she looked back at Tom. How do I know you can deliver on these promises? Tom's smile returned. Your Majesty, how do you think I got here? You were captured in a raid. I was captured exactly when and where I intended to be captured. The raid on Tau Ceti was a setup designed to bring me here without raising suspicion. Tom looked around the throne room. Did Your Majesty really think it was coincidence that your guards found detailed intelligence about Lord Kexun's weapons sales? Or that I happen to have comprehensive data about problems throughout your empire? Queen Vexera's eyes widened. This entire conversation has been planned. For months, Your Majesty. Humans do not act without preparation. We have been gathering intelligence, building alliances, and positioning ourselves for exactly this moment when we could offer partnership from a position of strength rather than weakness. And if I had chosen to execute you again immediately? Tom shrugged. Then other humans would have continued with alternative plans. Your Majesty, the offer I am making today is not dependent on my survival. It is dependent on your wisdom. Queen Vexera stood and walked to one of the crystal windows overlooking her capital city. Millions of beings from dozens of species moved through the streets below, most of them conquered people serving Zephyrian interests. She had built this empire through military strength and ruled it through fear. But Tom was right about one thing: fear was not sustainable forever. Captain Rex, she said without turning around. Remove the prisoner's chains. Your Majesty. You heard me. Captain Rex reluctantly deactivated Tom's energy bonds. The human rubbed his wrists but made no threatening moves. Queen Vexera turned back to face the throne room. Tom of the humans. I accept your proposal for a trial partnership. You will have 6 months to demonstrate the value of human mediation in 3 problem regions of my choosing. If you succeed, we will negotiate broader arrangements. If you fail, every human in my empire will be transported to prison worlds. Tom bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, we will not fail. See that you do not. The Queen returned to her throne. Captain Rex, escort our new partner to suitable quarters. He will need time to contact his people and begin organizing this experiment. As Tom was led from the throne room, Queen Vexera reflected on the conversation. In one day, a human she thought was dead had revealed the existence of a massive hidden population, exposed corruption among her nobles, and convinced her to try an entirely new approach to governing her empire. Either humans were the most remarkable species she had ever encountered, or she had just made the biggest mistake of her reign. Time would tell which was true.